And we are live. What is up, everybody? This is Nick from P2W Fantasy. Had to save up some money to get all three of these guys on, but I got three great guests to talk some Week 13 football. We are on the cusp of fantasy playoffs, so this is a very important week for a lot of people to either try to get into the playoffs, maybe secure a first-round bye. Big week for a lot of fantasy managers. So to start things off, I'm going to make sure I introduce all of my guests here. Let them plug their own stuff and where to find them and those things. But we'll start with Steve here. Steve from Climb the Pocket. I've linked up with Steve on a couple different live streams and podcasts before. I was even lucky enough to be on the Climb the Pocket podcast with him at one time. And I also play in a league with Steve. So, Steve, can you just let everybody know where we can find you and what you got going on?
So you can find me on Twitter at Steve_CTP. You can find my work and some of my other co-workers or other people on Climb the Pocket at climbthepocket.com. I got tons of good articles up there, but I mostly run our YouTube page. So go over and look up Climb the Pocket on YouTube. The link is also in my bio on my Twitter. We just went over 1,000 subscribers, so we're definitely growing and whatnot. We usually put out our starts and sits every single week to help you, win your fantasy football matchup, help you set your lineup. And we got a giveaway going. We're giving away a Davante Adams signed jersey. I might have been the first one to just mention that. I think we teased it, but I'm apparently letting everyone know that that's what we're doing. It's coming up in the near future. It's going to be for subscribers. So if you're interested in that, go over to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and you'll have a chance to win that jersey. But yeah, every week posting videos out there. So come take a look, and hope you enjoy it.
All right. And we also have Bob here from I-80 Sports. Bob, where can we find you? And tell us a bit about I-80 Sports.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. We are a full channel. We cover MLS soccer. We cover NFL, college football, and NHL. You can find us at I80_sports. That is my personal Twitter. You can also find us youtube.com/I80 Sports or I80sports.com.
Awesome. Very, very good. Very good. Thanks for joining us. And last but not least, we have David Davenport. David's with the Full 10 Yards Fantasy. David, can you tell us a bit about Full 10 Yards Fantasy? And also, just for some listeners, where you're from, because that's a cool piece of knowledge to know as well.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. So as you can probably tell by my accent, I am from the UK, and we are the Full 10 Yards family, representing from the other side of the pond, as we like to call it. So at the Full 10 Yards, we cover the fantasy football, the NFL. We've got a betting page. We've got a retro page, which is great because we go into all of the little nuggets from the past. We've got college. We've got Brit Ball. We've got the nice covering for everybody from this side of the pond.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will jump right into the matchups here. We got a lot to talk about. With our first game to discuss here, we have the Saints versus the Falcons. So my big question for you guys is that I've been thinking about a little bit here is both running backs present an interesting kind of dilemma right now because Alvin Kamara, I'm a big guy on you play your studs no matter what. But some people are a little bit overly concerned about his last 2 weeks. He's not the Alvin Kamara that we do know. One catch over those past 2 games, and he's scored under 11 points based off of your PPR leagues. That's what I'm looking at. On the other side of the ball, we have Todd Gurley, who was a bit banged up, should be a go, but the Falcons just played the Saints, and he had a rough go as well, and seems to be a bit touchdown dependent this season. So looking at these 2 running backs, do you guys have concerns with either one of them or both of them or neither of them? And I'll start off with Bob here and your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I'm not starting Gurley. I have him in a league. I don't need to start him, so I'm benching him. He is one of those top guys that he's going to be a running back 2, maybe a high-end 3 this week. So there's very few people that are in that privileged position. But if you can flex him out, I'm getting him out of my lineups this week.
All right, so Gurley's a fade. And you're comfortable with Kamara?
Yeah, I don't know, comfortable is the word, but he's too good to bench.
Yeah, I agree right there. Steve, what are your thoughts on these two running backs going into the matchup here?
Yeah, I mean, Kamara's the kind of guy that can, win your week on one play. He's so versatile on the field and whatnot. So it's pretty hard to consider benching him. You certainly have to lower your expectations because the Falcons actually have a pretty good run defense. I know he does a lot of the work out of the passing game, but you just mentioned one catch over the last 2 weeks. Not something we can really rely on going into this third week with Taysom Hill. So, like I said, the Falcons' rushing defense, not that they're actually pretty good. And then as far as Todd Gurley, the Saints are the best run defense in the league. So I kind of agree that if there's a way you can get him out of your lineup, I'd feel much comfortable with a guy like if you were able to pick up like Devontae Booker or something like that going into the Jets, just someone I know who's going to get a lot of volume against a worse run defense. So I'd feel more comfortable with that. I don't think this game is going to be good for either team on the ground. So you got to play Kamara, but certainly not excited.
We had my buddy Gemo the Icon checking in. Yeah, I listened to Field Yates talking about early on with Kamara not having a catch in not last game, the game before. And he said a thought that he had was Taysom Hill might not have the same ability as maybe Breeze is, where you're looking downfield to make the play. And then the next option, if those don't break down, is finding Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. So that was something interesting to think about. I saw a news report that Drew Brees might be able to play next week, so things might change come there. But David, I want to make sure I get your opinion on this too with these two running backs.
Yeah, and I can't really add too much more than what's already been said. Obviously, Alvin Kamara, the majority for a guy who's not had as many carries as the top guys in the league from a rushing perspective. You're not going to compare him in the same conversation as Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry, for example. He's been very reliant on the passing work. And ironically, the Falcons do give up the majority of the points to the running back through the air as opposed to on the ground, which would have been great for Alvin Kamara. And I think something great about this matchup is these two teams only played 2 weeks ago. So it was Taysom Hill's first game, and we did get a little snippet as to what we can expect from Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray, both putting up 10.5 points in that fixture 2 weeks ago. So we can't sit Alvin Kamara, and it's something that I was having a question about yesterday. Can we? And no, what you paid for him, and he has got the ability, like Steve mentioned before, he's got the ability to win you your matchup in one play. So we can't sit him, but I'm not feeling great about it. And then with Todd Gurley, we've got to get that touchdown from him, and that's been the same all season. I think we do get the touchdown, but if you've got other options, then you've got to start them over Todd.
I have a stat here that the Saints have given up 28 points over the last 4 games, not 4 quarters, 28 points over the last 4 games. And that includes a game against the Falcons. So
yeah, I'm not going to dig super deep into that, but what I read from that is that's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah. But yeah, very good there. Going over to the next matchup here. I'll leave the floor a little bit more open for this one, but rocking my James Robinson jersey. We know he's had a great season. Got to respect him. He's from Rockford, Illinois. I'm from Illinois. Steve is actually from Illinois as well, in Florida now. But a lot of question marks with some other of the skill players on the Jaguars. Obviously, we've saw 3 different quarterbacks, and we've seen different weeks out of the receivers. Even Keelan Cole has had some decent weeks. Other side of the ball, obviously, Dalvin Cook is pretty good at football. Justin Jefferson's been going off given the opportunity, and now we have Adam Thielen back. So looking at this matchup here, is there something specifically you are looking at out of this game? We'll start here with Steve on this one.
I guess I'd be looking at Kirk Cousins and seeing if he can continue this small streak he's got going. He's got over 20 fantasy points in multiple weeks in a row. And he's going into Jaguars, who are a pretty good matchup. And Justin Jefferson's been a go-to guy for him lately. So I'm excited to see if he can keep it going, which he has been all year. He's been the best rookie wide receiver in my eyes. And then he gets Adam Thielen back from the COVID list. So if people are using him as a streamer this week, you got to think they feel pretty comfortable if they got to bench a guy like Cam or someone else that's usually ranked inside like the top 12 and put in Kirk Cousins. I'd feel pretty comfortable with that. I'm also looking to see if Dalvin Cook has his full workload. I know he's had an injury all week, kind of off and on. There's been a lot of talks. Obviously, he's going to play, but I'm just anxious to see if he makes it through this game. It's that time of the season where Dalvin Cook likes to get injured and miss your fantasy playoffs, which we definitely are not hoping happens. We want him to help people win fantasy football championships, but something I'm watching for sure. So I'd be looking at those two guys.
Yeah, speaking of rookie wide receiver one, Justin Jefferson, 4 weeks, 20-plus points, and 2 of those weeks he was 30-plus points. So he's had a few weeks where he's been a matchup winner almost. David, what about you for this matchup? Anything specific you're looking at?
I'm looking at Laviska Shenault. So the guy had a really great start to the season. He did miss a little bit of time with a hamstring injury and was his first game back last week. And it wasn't quite the points totals that we were used to for the first kind of the season. But this is a guy, he's one of these gadget players, your Curtis Samuel kind of players, and he gets carries, he gets targets. So I'm just wanting him now to step up and play more of a part in this offense, because the Jags low key have got some pieces on this offense, and it's just a case of now we need another good off season from them. We need to build up, obviously get that quarterback situation resolved there. But Chark, Cole, and Shenault Jr. for me are a nice trio out wide. Obviously we've got James Robinson, who nobody expected to have the season that he's doing there. But I think on the low key they've got some nice pieces on the offense, and I just want to see now them used effectively for the last part of the season, just to at least be competitive in games. I don't want them to win too many games, because obviously that ruins their draft pick for next year. But let's just at least see some excitement from this Jags team. And if they can do it with Mike Glennon at quarterback, then they can do it with anybody. But yeah, I'm wanting to see some more usage from Laviska this week.
All right, and Bob, thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so my thoughts were mostly based around Kirk Cousins. It's his 3rd straight home game. And while Kirk Cousins seems to take a lot of pressure for his terrible performances on Monday Night Football during primetime games, he also doesn't get enough credit for what he does at home. I have a couple stats for you. So far this year at home, Kirk Cousins is averaging 282 yards, 2.8 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 12 rushing yards. That is 22.5 points per game at home. If he only played home games, he would be quarterback 6 on the season. I think that is why I have Vikings winning this game pretty handily. Justin Jefferson is there. Thielen is there. Cook is there. I don't like Jaguars to even move the football, but if I have to make a pick, James Robinson, he's getting like 98% of his backfield workload. It's off the charts ridiculous. So I'm going that way. But yeah, Kirk Cousins is my guy this week. I'm starting him in multiple DFS lineups.
All right, and I don't blame you for doing so in this matchup as well. He's got a hot hand, and that's for sure. Moving forward, Browns and Titans game. So one thing I'm looking for in this game is, can I get a Kareem Hunt bounce back? Because we're talking 2 weeks back-to-back under 10 points. And the touches 2 weeks ago versus Philly, he had 14 touches, so he had 13 carries and 1 catch. And then last week, he had 10 rushing attempts and 0 catches. So obviously, early on in the season, when Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt were both in the mix before the Chubb injury, both were very fantasy relevant and both could be played. It's been a little bit of a question mark right now for Kareem Hunt. Is he going to get a little bit more of a rhythm going? And it's not the easiest of matchups, not a walk in the park there, but I'm looking for hopefully a Kareem Hunt bounce back to get to at least his projection, because I'm a little bit concerned just from a personal standpoint on the shares that I have. David, we can start with you on this one for the Browns and the Titans. Something specific you're looking at in this game?
I think this game I think it will be lucky to see this game go to 3 hours with the pieces that we've got on either side of the ball with Chubb, Hunt, and Henry. It's 2 teams that are committed to running the football. It will run down that play clock, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this game done in 2.5 hours. So I want to see Baker step up a little bit more, and we've just mentioned that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are gonna run this football. But if Cleveland are gonna have any success in January, and that they are well on the trajectory to make the playoffs, they're gonna have to rely on that Baker Mayfield a little bit more, because once we get to January, teams will be that little bit more effective. They will be able to game plan more for Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. So Baker has got to step up here. And obviously he's lost Beckham early in the season. So Jarvis Landry had his first breakout game of the season last week. So I'm just looking for them to continue that connection going over to this week. And Clowney is out for this one. He's out for the rest of the season now. So that just takes that little bit of pressure off Baker Mayfield in that backfield. Let's see him pass the ball 30, 35 times just to get that bit of rhythm going, because they're going to need it to get to January. And I just want to see a little bit of a practice run for Baker this week.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like you said, Jarvis Landry had a good game last week, and it'll be interesting to see if he has the same sort of volume. He had 11 targets last game. He scored well above 20 points there. He spent 5 weeks before that under 12 points. So we'll see if this is a trend in the right direction for him. Bob, on this one, anything stand out to you?
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a game that's won and lost on the ground. Tennessee is 25th in the league at allowing total yards. They're allowing 384 yards total per game. Baker's good for maybe 200 of that. That leaves about 180 yards between these two running backs. I love Chubb. I love Hunt this week. Probably no one else. I like Henry, of course. I mean, you never don't like Henry. The one thing I'm going to pump the brakes on, a lot of people talk about Anthony Firkser this week as a tight end. Jonnu Smith is out, which means Titans, I guess there's a little void there. So I'm hearing a lot of stuff, people trying to start him. I'm avoiding Firkser like the plague. There's no tight end targets to go around here. The Tennessee Titans are going to need their tight ends to block. Browns, especially with their running attack, Myles Garrett is just going to be after the quarterback. These tight ends aren't going to do anything. Firkser is a sit for me, and I like the under on all of his props.
Okay, I know a lot of people, as soon as a guy steps in and has some sort of volume, they draw a lot of attention there. So that's interesting to hear about Firkser. Steve, what about you for this game?
Yeah, Firkser is going to be pretty well owned in a lot of DFS lineups, and I guess you're predicting that he's going to kill a lot of those lineups. We'll see.
I'm hoping he's going to kill a lot of those lineups.
Yeah, he's hoping so. I'm going to be just watching the running back usage, specifically for the Browns. It's all going to be game script here. I really do think if the Browns get out to any sort of lead in the game, Chubb is going to have the much better game compared to Kareem Hunt. But if they go down to the Titans at any point, and maybe by 2 scores, I think Kareem Hunt will become more and more involved, which we would expect more than he has been the last couple weeks. But like I mentioned, if the Browns are ahead or it's a neutral game script, I think Chubb is going to have a great game. The Titans are the bottom 6 team in the league for rushing yards and fantasy points to running backs. And that just sets up as a really good matchup for Chubb, who's just been really, I guess, I don't want to say underrated, but he's one of the best running backs in the NFL. And it's clearly shows this guy is like a lock to go over 100 yards. He's getting in the end zone more this year on longer runs, a guy that you can really trust to put in your lineup. So I really love Chubb this week, and I wouldn't be afraid of Kareem Hunt. He's in my rankings somewhere around a low-end RB2, maybe mid-range RB2, and I feel very comfortable with that against the Titans. As I mentioned, not a tough matchup. Hopefully we can get a little more catches this week, but that's what I'll be watching. And Derrick Henry on the other side, you're certainly starting him. The Browns actually have a pretty good rush defense, but you have no, sort of the Colts, even though they missed some key pieces last week, and he just went bananas. So I definitely like Henry this week, and I'm definitely going to keep watching a guy like AJ Brown. He's just so exciting to watch. I'm going to see if he can pop up another long touchdown or something like that. He's clearly the target leader on his team, whatnot, and a touchdown monster. So I like him to get back in the end zone against the Browns secondary, which is not that threatening. There's a couple of decent names on there, but I think he can find a way to get in.
All right. So moving ahead, we have what might be the most exciting game of the weekend, the Chicago Bears versus the Detroit Lions. And all sarcasm plugged in right there. As a Bears fan, hoping for the best there. But one thing I liked last week was David Montgomery having a good week, because the last handful of games, he missed the Minnesota game in week 10. But looking back, 5.2, 12.5, 11.9 across the last 3 games that he did play. Before the Green Bay game, he had 11 attempts for 103 yards. What I liked a lot was having 5 receptions, and one of those receptions went for a touchdown. He scored 25.3 fantasy points. So good week out of Dave Montgomery. I think he's set up to have a good week again against the Lions here. The Swift news has been killing me. I'm hoping for the best for him. There is talk about him potentially being shut down due to what's going on with that concussion. But yeah, there's a lot of variables on that end of the run game there. What do you guys think about this game here moving forward? Steve, I know you're a huge Lions and Bears fan, so we can start with you.
Love them. I love them. let me just first touch on Swift. It's heartbreaking because I have Swift in a couple leagues, and we saw him break out, and then right after that gets a concussion in practice, illness. And we don't know if he's going to get back to that form in which he was going towards and being that RB1. It's really tough to watch, but exciting player. Hopefully he finishes the season well. But going on to this game, David Montgomery, the most exciting running back you can ever put in your lineup every single week. We love to do it. And last week against the 30th ranked Packers defense, had a really big run and had a really good fantasy day, especially with those garbage time points at the end. That pass from Mitchell Trubisky was able to make a really good fantasy day. And going against the worst run defense in the Lions, I think he's going to be very, very chalky in DFS, being a lot of people's lineups. And I don't know if I can really trust that, but he's certainly probably going to give you RB2 production. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think he's like RB14 on the year, which is crazy, or RB13 after last week.
I think 15.
Yeah,
you're on the mark. Yeah,
right there. I mean, that's crazy because every week people put our David Montgomery down in the dirt, but that's a pretty good running back. He's almost an RB1, and you feel comfortable starting him every week. He's getting you the points. So I'd feel comfortable starting him. As far as the running backs on the other side, I don't feel comfortable starting any of those guys. If Swift's not there, I'm keeping them out. I'm worried about this Lions offense in general against the Bears defense. I know the Bears defense wasn't that great last week against the Packers, but they're playing the Lions, and the Lions they're not as nearly as good of an offense as the Packers are. So I think the Bears are going to be mad from last week. They're coming out to play. Lions don't have Galladay again, which is super sad because he's a great player. We want to see him on the field.
Sketchy situation. I don't know if there's a huge injury concern. Some people rumored some sort of contract implications that might be involved. I don't know what's going on with that, but he's been a huge disappointment in fantasy this year.
Yeah, I'm just worried about this team in general. With him out of the lineup, when he's in the lineup, he produces really well, makes the offense go. Without it and without Swift, I don't like this offense at all. So I'm actually staying away from any Lions in this game for sure.
We got two quick questions, and then I'll get Bob and David's takes on here. Tom Catalano 815. I think you know this guy, Steve. It might have been when we were talking about the Browns game, but maybe we can answer this one quickly. Is Landry finding the end zone?
Ooh. I mean, I really don't have a lot of confidence in that, but there's definitely a good chance he's Baker's number one target, seeing a lot of targets. I'd probably give it a slightly more than 50% chance that he finds the end zone. So, yeah, I think he finds the end zone.
I'm uninterested in this question.
Exactly. What do you say? Yes? No?
Flip a coin.
All right. And Kenyon Drake or Damian Harris flex PPR. I'll leave that to you guys if anybody wants to chime in for that one.
I like Kenyon Drake. It's I think Arizona are gonna struggle through the air. They're gonna need to lean on the ground game a little bit. So I'm going Drake with this one.
Chargers are giving up 120 yards on the ground per game, so I'm going to take Damian Harris in this.
Oh, so we got a split. So we're going to have Steve. You're going to have to be the deal breaker right here.
I'm just going to go with Drake. I really like his volume lately and the work he's getting in the offense. I think Kyler Murray's becoming a little more healthy, which is good for any part of the offense. So I'm just going to go with Drake. Damian Harris has definitely had his fair share of 100-yard games and whatnot, which is great. Doesn't really see a lot of work in the passing game, unlike Drake. So it's PPR. So I'm going to go with Drake.
All right, back to the Bears-Lions. David, anything that stands out to you in this game that you're looking for?
Yeah, so I'm really excited to see. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm really excited to see Mitch Trubisky because if there's one thing that he loves to do is play against the Lions. He got 3 touchdowns, 24 points in week 1 against the Lions. He's back named now as the starter. Nick Foles is expected to back him up this afternoon. And Allen Robinson, he was questionable with a knee injury heading into this one, but he is now good to go. And Jeff Okudah is out. So I think Trubisky, Mooney, Robinson are going to go ham against this Lions secondary. And even though David Montgomery has got that favourable matchup against the run defense of the Lions, I think Trubisky and Robinson are going to have a really nice day here.
I was really excited to see this game at the beginning of the week. Lions +3, I was all over that. They fired Matt Patricia. You get that sometimes that new coach smell kind of gives your team a little boost. And we were expected to see Galladay and Swift. That will not be happening this week. But I had Lions to win, and now it's a little muddled. There is one player that I absolutely love in this game. That's Anthony Miller. Lions are absolutely terrible against the slot position. They're one of the worst teams in the league against slot receivers. Anthony Miller has had 11, 8, 7, and 6 targets in the last 4 games. He did catch a touchdown with, I think he had like 76 yards week 1 against Detroit. I think Anthony Miller is a lock in. He's one of the best plays of the week.
And he might be the easier target for Mitch Trubisky, because I know, Darnell Mooney with both quarterbacks kind of burned the defenders at times and was overthrown or underthrown. So that slot role might be.
Mitch can't throw further than a slot receiver can run. So
hey, that works out perfectly for Miller there. And quick note, not sure if it's the best game, but what a year for TJ Hawkinson in a tight end position. I mean, tight end 3 doesn't have the same sort of production as like a Travis Kelce, but I guess he's one of the guys you could depend on a weekly basis, but it'll be interesting in this matchup. Next on the slot here, we have the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Miami Dolphins, and it looks like Tua is going to take the start today. Had that thumb issue going on. I was a little bit surprised. I think some people were banking on Fitz for fantasy purposes to step in to this game. Myles Gaskin being back is a good sign for fantasy managers as well. I think he's been practicing the last 2 weeks, but hasn't saw the field at all. But he was on a tear before and he got a lot of volume. So, Bob, you can start us off with this one. Something you're looking for in this game.
I was really looking forward to Tua playing against Burrow. I had this game kind of circled on the calendar, 2 rookie quarterbacks going against each other. But it looks like we're obviously not going to see that. I have the Bengals being 0-18-1 in their last 19 away games. They're winless in their last 19, and I believe they're going to be winless in 20 this week. Since he's 30th, giving up 136.7 rushing yards per game. So Gaskins is my guy, and I'll take the Dolphins. I think Bengals are getting 11.5 points. That really shows you how Vegas think this game's going to run. Over under only 42.5, which is very interesting to me.
Interesting. Steve, what about this game?
11 points, huh? Yeah, I mean, I think this is a game that the Miami defense is going to have to do some work, which they have this year. Because I don't know if I have a lot of trust in Tua to cover that kind of point spread, even against the Bengals 3rd string quarterback. This game's going to be kind of ugly. I don't know if I trust Myles Gaskin on the Dolphins. We saw him get tons of work before he was injured, but now he's back. I don't like to throw guys right into my lineup when they come back from injuries. So if I have a different option, I'd much rather, and like maybe I'm already secured in the playoffs or something, I'd much rather just not risk it or whatever and put him in my lineup. I just want to see what happens till next week. But hey, if you got to throw a dart and you got to make the playoffs and you need a guy who's probably going to get most of the volume, you could throw him in there. I'm really upset that Tua is playing. I want to see this guy succeed, and I'm sure Dolphins fans too. But obviously, everyone in the fantasy industry wants Fitz to play, especially if they have any share of Devontae Parker, because we saw what he did last week, and he looked like a wide receiver 1. Getting tons of targets, tons of yards, tons of catches, all of that. I had it in my lineup since day 1 after week 12 ended, and I felt really good about it. And now I wake up this morning to a notification saying that Tua is going to start, and it upsets me because I just don't trust him. The Bengals, is it William Jackson on the outside? He is really good at defending the left side, and that's where Devontae Parker is going to line up. And so you can maybe look at a guy like Jakeem Grant or something if you need a dart throw. But my expectations for Devontae Parker just went down the drain. Like, I got to start him, but I don't feel very comfortable about it. He was somewhere around my wide receiver 15. He's probably going to drop it down, like with Tua starting, another 10 slots to like wide receiver 25. And that's a pretty drastic drop, like right on game day. So I don't feel confident.
Yeah, and Mike Gesicki is another interesting guy that I thought was going to get a good boost with Fitzpatrick. And the reason being is he's had the big week 2 with Fitz. He had the 27-point game. Last week he had a touchdown with Fitz. Last season he was in the talks for tight ends that were going to be guys. He was going to be a guy that you're going to draft a little bit higher for the position in the coming year. But I thought he was another guy that was going to get that boost with Fitz instead of Tua here. David, what are your thoughts on this game?
I think that key thing for me here is just how good is T. Higgins, because last week, even though the quarterback situation in Cincinnati isn't great, we saw him get the touchdown, we get the production, and I think him and Boyd are currently in the fight for the true wide receiver one role in that offense. Boyd we saw have an off game last week, so yeah, I'm just really excited to see T. Higgins and just how good he can be, and if he's not only matchup proof but quarterback proof as well. So he's one of these players that is I know you talk about Justin Jefferson as being the top rookie wide receiver in this class, but I think T. Higgins has done great things this season, and if he can do it with third string quarterbacks, then I'm really looking forward to seeing him again next season. So it's more of a looking forward to next season game for me, this one.
All right. So we got the next game here on the slot, the Colts versus the Texans. So one thing that stands out, Jonathan Taylor back. There were so many question marks before about the usage and how, Hines would have this massive week and then Wilkins would sneak up and have a ridiculous amount of touches unnecessarily. Last week without Jonathan Taylor, the Colts produced 56 rushing yards. So I think that might stand out to them, especially when the last game he played, he went for 90 yards, 15.4 fantasy points. He had 4 catches out of the backfield as well. So seeing that they didn't rush the ball well last week, he had a good last game before hitting that COVID list. Hopefully this is going to be a game where Taylor gets the volume that he should get. On the other side of the ball, what stands out obviously is Will Fuller. I think he said it was medication. I think a lot of people thought he was just taking some stuff to hit the weight room or something, but he's suspended for the rest of the season here. Brandon Cooks is coming off of a lot of good weeks. 13.5, 12.5 is okay the last 2 games, but the volume's been pretty good for him. It's going to be a big question mark to where does the Will Fuller vacated targets go? Is Cooks going to get that many more targets in a game? Is Kiki Kuti going to step up in his role? Is the tight end position going to take a bump? Is Isaiah Coulter going to step up in his rookie year? What are your thoughts here? And we'll start with David on this one.
Yeah, so it's 12.9 targets per game that have been vacated, with Will Fuller, Randall Cobb, and Kenny Stills vacating the wide receiver room there. So that is a sizable amount. And obviously, they're not all going to go to Brandon Cooks. So I do like Kiki Kuti to step up and take, 5 or 6 of those. A couple are going to get spread over across the tight ends. They've got 2 there, which are in constant battle with each other in Jordan Akins and Darren Fells. Akins seems to be the hot hand in this offense in the tight end room at the moment, but it's a really poor matchup for them against the Indianapolis Colts, conceding only the 30th most fantasy points to the position. So it's going to be a really difficult one because we've got David Johnson out. We've got Duke Johnson, who's going to have to carry the load in this one. It's not a great matchup for him either. So for me, the key thing in this one is Deshaun Watson, and just how good is Deshaun Watson? Because yeah, he's a great quarterback. He can do it on the ground. He can do it through the air. But he's always had DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller there as that true wide receiver one. And now we've got to really show him step up in a poor matchup with the most outside chance of a playoff spot here. But really now just a chance to show what he's made of in a really tough matchup against a decent Indy defense. And we're contemplating benching him in this one because it is a really tough matchup and he's lost his receiving options. But no, I'm going to start with him. I'm going to stick with him. And I think he really does now step up to become in the conversation as one of the top quarterbacks in this league. All
right, Bob, you're up.
Yeah, so for me, really what I'm looking for is Houston. Now, I do want to congratulate Houston. They're actually now the 31st team out of 32 against the run. Dallas blew that last week. Now they're down to the worst.
Trending upward,
154 rushing yards per game. But Colts haven't really maximized on that. So I look for the running backs here. Jonathan Taylor coming off a 90-yard, 22-carry game. I think he needs to make that next step today, and I think he's going to. I think he's going to be a great game for him today. I really like actually David Johnson coming back from injury against the Colts. Someone's got to touch the ball. There is no reason it can't be him. I know people are very disappointed because he's not a running back 1 anymore, but I think he's a high-end running back 2 this week. So I'm going with the 2 running backs here, Jonathan Taylor and David Johnson.
All right, Steve.
I'm going to be watching Deshaun Watson, kind of like Dave said. I feel like we kind of took a a backwards leap in time to the beginning of the year when they got rid of Hopkins, and then they had all these receivers, and we didn't know what they were going to do without a true wide receiver one. They had Fuller, they had Cooks, they had Stills, and it kind of feels like that now. Now that Will Fuller had made himself a wide receiver one, they get rid of him. Now they're just down to a bunch of guys again. Not downplaying Cooks or anything. He's been great. We don't know exactly what's going to happen in this offense. We have to put a lot of trust in Deshaun Watson's arm and his legs, of course. So I'll be watching him to see if he can manage to get past this very tough Colts defense. Like I mentioned before, DeForest Buckner will be back in this game off the COVID list, and he wreaks havoc on the defense. He makes the whole defense better. That team play better on defense. So I think it's going to be a much tougher matchup than it was for last week for guys like Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, those guys on the Titans offense. They had a much easier day. I think it's going to be a tougher day for the Texans. I'm not super confident in Brandon Cooks this week for some of those reasons, but the volume alone, if there's any uptick in targets than the targets he's already been getting, he's a guy you're going to have to throw out there. You're not going to be super happy against the matchup, but I'll be watching it. Hopefully he can, come away with a good game, somewhere around 5-6 catches for like 70 yards or so. Maybe finds the end zone. That'd be a very, very good day going against this defense. So that's what I'll be watching. And then overall, I don't know. I know you mentioned David Johnson. Like I mentioned before, I don't really like to put guys right back into my lineup, especially going against a tough matchup. So that's going to be a tough one for me. If you don't have many options, I think you have to play him as a low-end running back too. So, yeah.
All right. Well, the Raiders play the Jets, and the Jets are on the hunt for a win. Maybe the players, probably not the organization due to the draft coming up. What I'm looking for in this game is to see if we have the next wide receiver rookie breakout. Denzel Mims is coming off of 3 straight games of 8 targets, but in those 3 games, he scored around 10 points. So he's maybe a touchdown away or a big play away from potentially having a breakout, especially with that volume. And then on the other side of the ball, not a huge Ruggs fan, wasn't coming into the draft, but we do know he's got the burners. He's coming off of a 5-target game. I think he should have scored a touchdown last game, if I'm not mistaken. So what I'm looking for out of this game is with these guys getting the volume now. So Ruggs, again, five targets in comparison to Mims having 3 straight games of 8 targets. I'm looking to see if one of these guys is going to have a breakout day, because I think in this game, the potential to do it is there. So Steve, for this game, is there something you're looking for out of it? I know it's one of the most exciting games on the day, but what are you looking for?
Oh, this is one I'm definitely looking for. Yeah, I think the Raiders, I think they're going to downplay to their competition, kind of like they did last week to the Falcons. They're certainly going to be upset and want to come out and have a much better game, but I think the Jets are low-key trying to find that one win. I don't think they want to go 0-16. It's demoralizing. It's embarrassing. Even if they're going to get the number 1 pick no matter what, they can still do that with 1 loss. Or with 1 win. So I think they're going to be looking for any matchup. I think it's this matchup and maybe week 16 or 17, whenever they play the Patriots again, try to get that W. So I think it's going to be a little more interesting game, not exciting, but it's going to be close. So I'll be watching just the overall matchup alone. But when you mentioned Mims before, I think a breakout could be coming, but a guy who's been actually more consistent is Rashad Perryman, a guy they signed in free agency over the offseason. He's actually had a couple more targets each game than Mims. He's been finding the end zone. Joe Flacco seems to like him, right? Sam Darnold. So he's just a little more reliable. If you have to pick between those 2 guys, I'd rather go with Perryman. A little more upside. We've seen him do it in the league before. Mims is kind of hovering around like that 8-point mark every week. Certainly, 1 big catch away from an actual pretty decent game. But at this point in the fantasy season, unless you're in a super deep league, I think you got to stop throwing darts on a guy like Mims. Maybe hold him on your bench just in case something happens, but it's the Jets. We can't have high expectations. So I don't really want to play anyone on the Jets. On the Raiders side, I mentioned Devontae Booker before. I do like him just from the volume alone. It's going to be him and Jalen Richard leading the backfield with Josh Jacobs out. And I think Booker's going to get most of the work. So I think volume alone will make him a pretty good play. So I like him.
All right. We got Bob. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same thing. I love Carr this week. Is anyone against the Jets? I'm actually in New York. I'm actually in New Jersey, but about 10 minutes away from New York City. So I get the media, kind of trashing on the Jets every chance we get. They're just so bad. Carr, I like. Devontae Booker is, one of those DFS guys who's basically free. He's the free square this week. I do want to weigh in a little bit on Mims. The reason why he's not taking that next step is because he's not really good at football. He's getting the target share, but he's not catching the football. He had in the last 3 weeks 8 targets. Yeah, he caught 4. 7 targets, he caught 3. 8 targets, he caught 4. So that's what's keeping him from the next step. It's not, game script. It's his own hands. So I don't like him there. Raiders, I do think they're going to have kind of this get right week. They scored 31 points, 37 points, and 31 points in their 3 previous weeks before last week, where I don't know what happened in Atlanta, but they're going to get right. They're going to win. They're going to cover the 8-point spread. I like the Raiders.
It's interesting with the Raiders too. It's they get smoked last week by the Falcons, and then a handful of weeks ago they beat the Chiefs. So it'll be important for them to get their groove back.
Well,
I think
more about the Chiefs than it does about the Raiders, doesn't it?
Yeah. Hey, it might. Yeah. David, thoughts here?
Yeah, I think it's just going to be one of those games for the Raiders. It's just going to be, let's just go get the win, get home again, because no one likes going to MetLife Stadium with the field. There's the higher chance of the injury with the playing surface there, and it's obviously traveling coast to coast for them on this one. And I think they're just going to hand the ball off to Devontae Booker. They're just going to pound the ground, few targets out to Darren Waller just to get the win any way that they can, really. And I know we've touched on this, but it's the whole debate: do they go out now in style and say, well, last week was a complete fluke, we are fully playoff contenders and we'll get there, or is it just they're going to be happy with a 17-3 win in just a short ground game again? I can't call it. The Raiders will win, but there's not too many fantasy options in this one other than the ones we've already touched upon.
I like that you said Waller, because that was kind of the one that I missed. Jets are 27th against the tight end. Waller is going to find the end zone twice.
Ooh. I want that.
Right?
Write it.
He's been a guy that's like, obviously he's the tight end too, but in tough matchups he doesn't show up. And it's just the overall, guard the best player on their team, and he's the best player on their team as far as receiving the football. So I like him in this matchup too. I need that. 2 touchdowns. Love it.
Yeah, we do need it. I mean, his ceiling is high. Obviously, he's had 2 weeks above 20, but then over the last 3 weeks of football, 6.7, 21.8, and 6.3. So he is due for a big game here if he's following the same pattern right now.
If we say it enough, we're going to will it into being.
I'm all for it. I'm all for that.
I mean, the Falcons were like, I think 28th in the league against tight ends, and nothing happened last week for that whole team. So I don't know if we can get too excited, but maybe they bounce back. So let's see.
Giants versus Seahawks. So obviously DK Metcalf good at football. Giants side, they have McCoy under center. The guy that I find interesting, and he was a guy last year that had the opportunity due to injury with that high ankle sprain for Saquon Barkley. Devontae Freeman came in and took the starting job, but then with his injury, Gallman's been stepping up big time. Here's the last handful of games here, and obviously people's leagues have a little bit different scoring, but the PPR league I'm in, 16.4, 13.2, 14.7, 19, 18.1. He scored a touchdown in every single one of those games. He scored 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 touchdowns in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games here. So he's catching fire. Obviously, we can't expect somebody to score a touchdown every single game, but he's been an interesting guy to just plug into your at least your flex position. A lot of different factors to talk about in this one here. Sterling Shepard's a guy I like a lot too. Not sure if the quarterback situation diminishes him, but what do you guys like about this game? David, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I called this earlier in the week as the stoppable force against the movable object in Colt McCoy against this Seattle Seahawks defense, because on paper you couldn't ask for a better matchup for Colt McCoy, but I'm not going to be playing him in my starting lineups because I cannot feel confident about this whatsoever. So the Giants are going to lean on Wayne Gallman, and this one, like you said, his scoring record of late has been good considering what we'd have expected. Obviously, Saquon Barkley was supposed to be the guy and was the guy that we drafted at the start of the season to be the pinnacle of this Giants offense. But no, Gallman's come in, he's done a fantastic job there, and we are going to play him because he's going to get that touchdown, which is it's not going to be the best yardage game for him, but he is going to get that touchdown to save it. And I think on the other side, it's the Seahawks one is a really difficult one to call because Carson came back last week and was kind of nursed back into his role. Like you've mentioned, Steve, with a couple of guys, it's really difficult to expect them to come straight back in from injury and retake the role. And he hasn't done that either because Hyde's done a pretty decent job in this backfield. So I think this is going to be a really difficult one to call the carry split here and the target split. So I'm almost leaning to starting neither or both. It's one of those for me, and they're either both flexes or I'm not wanting to get involved in that headache. But DK Metcalf, what a season he's having, he's going to be fantastic in this one as well. And then Tyler Lockett, you play him, but I'm not feeling too great about it because he's had a couple of massive games this season, but a lot of the time he's been quiet. He's not consistent enough for me this season, which is something that he has been a lot of times in other seasons. But yeah.
All right, Steve, we'll go to you on the next take here.
All right, I just want to mention Michael on Twitter asked, should I play Sterling Shepard or Carlos Hyde? And I actually chose Hyde in that one. I don't think I trust Colt McCoy in this offense as a quarterback. I mean, he's a bad backup quarterback, a guy in his 30s who's never been a good starter in the NFL. He's been a backup forever, and he's not a good replacement. You want to have a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, like Andy Dalton, some of the best backup quarterbacks in the league. Instead, you have Colt McCoy. It's not a good option. I can't trust anyone in this Giants offense on the receiving side. I'm worried about it. I like Wayne Gallman, but if I had to choose between those guys, I would go with Hyde. He's getting a lot more work in this offense with Chris Carson. It's becoming a little more of a split. Like Chris Carson a little better, but I'd take Carlos Hyde in that case. I'm actually looking at Russell Wilson this week. It seems like a pretty good matchup, but the Giants are actually pretty good against quarterbacks and defending wide receivers. And Russell Wilson's last 3 games, under 10 fantasy points one week, just over 20 the next week, and then 14 last week against Philly. And there were some tough defense. You had the Rams, you had the Cardinals, and you had Philly. But they're going against the Giants now. Can he bounce back, getting into that upper echelon, tier of quarterbacks? He was in the MVP race, and he certainly still is. It seemed like Patrick Mahomes is taking that over. But let's see if he can get back on track against the Giants. DK Metcalf, he was able to do it to Slay last week. In his shadow coverage, James Bradbury is going to have his way with him this week. But I think he's just so good, and that he's going to have a great game. And let me just touch on Tyler Lockett real quick. A comp player on a different team, a guy that you just have to put on your lineup. It's like Cooper Kupp, a guy you have to put in your lineup based on name value, and he can have a big game, but you're not excited because he's so inconsistent, in the offense and whatnot. So I just wanted to put that comp in there. He kind of seems like Cooper Kupp, same kind of guy. Put in your lineup, have to put him out there. Could explode. Can't predict when he's going to explode. So
yeah, it's a little frustrating when a guy can score 53 on one week and then come out and score like last week 5.3. So that's the same number, but a decimal point is in the wrong spot there.
That is a floor and a ceiling for you, Nick.
Absolutely. Bob, your thoughts here?
Sure. So I think this is actually going to be a low scoring game, and I think the Giants actually have a chance. And it's just one of these matchup things. Giants are giving up 95.4 rushing yards per game. That's only 2 yards more than the Rams. So this Giants run stopping team has got a lot going on. This Giants, I'm a Giants fan, and we're in New York. Just to get full disclosure, we're really excited about this Giants defense. We're really excited about this Giants team, and we're not even seeing the best. I mean, they're injured. Lorenzo Carter's out. O'Shane Jimenez has been out. First round pick Xavier McKinney hasn't been playing. This Giants defense is the real deal, and against Seattle, it's a matchup that I'm really not looking forward to watch at all. I do want to touch on just a couple things. Sterling Shepard, I think, is the safe bet here just because he's a slot receiver. We talked about slot receivers with backup quarterbacks. It kind of fits. Sterling Shepard had success with Eli Manning. How much of a step down is Colt McCoy from what Eli Manning was doing for the last 2 seasons? I think Sterling Shepard has a little bit of sneaky value, but I don't love anyone. There are no matchups in this game I really like except DK Metcalf. He is matchup proof to me at this point. It doesn't matter if you put Andre the Giant on him in the backfield. He's going to jump over him, catch the ball. Just an amazing athlete. So I'm interested in DK Metcalf and just about no one else.
All right. Going to the next game, I have a question for you guys on this one. So I have the Rams versus the Cardinals. We talked before about potential breakouts and guys having changes of roles. Cam Akers coming off of a game where he carried the ball 9 times for 84 yards. He had a 67-yard carry and a touchdown in that game. Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson combined for 23 yards on 13 carries. Do we have any optimism? And feel free, outside of answering this question, to throw in anything else about this game. But do we have any optimism that Cam Akers can take this job, or is it one of those things where McVay's going to roll with the hot hand like he's been doing this season? And Bob, you can start us off with that one.
I'm going to want to see it. I just want the film. I want to see it happen before I'm going to put any eggs in that basket. This is the game I guess it can happen, but I like Rams in the air. I like Rams defense. I think this is going to be a little lower scoring than you think. You got, like Jalen Ramsey on Hopkins. That's going to slow the whole game down. And yeah, it might be a run game, but I want to see the film first.
All right, we'll go to Steve next.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I need to see it. 9 carries, 84 yards, 67-yard run. That means the rest of his runs weren't very efficient. And I know we can't always just say that because he was able to break off a 67-yard run, and that takes talent, definitely. But I need to see it. I need to see kind of what we saw with the Lions with DeAndre Swift. Even though we haven't seen that 2 games in a row, we were all pretty convinced that he's going to be the workhorse now. They mentioned it. He's going to be the lead back, and then he got all that work. We haven't seen anything like that from this Rams offense. We haven't seen any statements from the coaching staff saying Cam Akers, we're going to give him a shot, an extended workload this week. Nothing. Every week is just a lotto ticket. Pick one of the 3. Hopefully you win. You can't feel confident. Earlier in the season you could with Darrell Henderson, but that's gone off the boat. We cannot pick between these 3 running backs. Cam Akers is a flyer. Let's hope that if you have Cam Akers on your team, he goes off this week with a lot more volume, and then you can put him in your lineup the next week in the fantasy playoffs. That's all you can be hoping for. But this week, if you need to win, it's going to be very, very tough to put him in your lineup unless you're in a deep 14-team league or something. That's all you got. So I don't feel confident with this backfield.
Yeah, it's especially with how important this week is. I think you have to be careful with the question marks around guys. If you want to plug in maybe to your flex like a receiver that has a high ceiling because you're chasing a matchup, that might be one thing. But to plug in a guy who might not get the volume at all, I don't know. It's a hit or miss sort of thing. David, you can cap us off on this matchup.
Yeah, it's a really intriguing one from an NFC West perspective because that division is really starting to hot up now with the 49ers beating the Rams last week. They are one game behind again, and this is a big statement game, and one of these teams needs to step up and win this now. So Kyler obviously is a phenomenal quarterback. He's in the MVP discussion, but it's not a great matchup for him against this Los Angeles Rams. Bob, as you've already mentioned, we've got Jalen Ramsey on DeAndre Hopkins here, and DeAndre Hopkins hasn't been a surefire thing in this offense. He's had plenty of games where he's not put up the fantasy points that we've expected from him. Of course, he's got a big game in him. He's one of the most talented receivers in the league, but he's not a surefire thing, and I don't like him this week against the Rams at all. So Kyler Murray's got to do it in a different way. I expect him to use his legs a lot in this one, as he has done for the majority of the season. And then at the quarterback position, we've got Jared Goff, who has got a favourable matchup against the Cardinals here, and he's not been doing it. He's not been producing. So if these two were the other way around with their matchups, then I think it would be a surefire thing that you'd start Murray and bench Goff. But it's a really difficult one to call. And on paper, it's crazy to say that the Goff has got the better matchup, but I still believe in Kyler more so. Tight end landscape in this one is just non-existent. It's crazy to say that after last season's Cardinals performance against the tight end that we wouldn't want to be starting them against the tight end. We were streaming tight ends against the Cardinals last season, but there's not a single tight end in this one that I want to start. So it's going to be a beating each other up. It's going to be one team is going to take this and it's going to give them advantage in the NFC West, but there's not too many fantasy performances here that I'm looking forward to. Maybe Kupp and Woods are going to be the two that I'm feeling most confident about across the whole board here to put into my lineups. But again, that relies on Jared Goff, which we can't do too much. I know his performance is hampered by his interceptions and stuff, but Kupp and Woods are the two top players for me in this one.
And we got a nice compliment, but I don't know how I feel about this. Steve looking handsome as usual from Bootleg Fantasy. Great compliment for Steve, but
it's gotta be the jacket, right?
It's the hair.
Hey, it's every day.
I remember those
I came,
games very well.
I came prepared.
Hey, I appreciate that. So we're approaching the hour mark. So what we'll do is we'll go over the next two afternoon games, and we'll leave the night game and the games on Monday and Tuesday to be discussed elsewhere here, and we'll just fly through these last two ones for the afternoon one. Looking at the Chargers and Patriots game, if I had to maybe speculate about one player in this game, it's I'll talk about somebody that's not super obvious, but Mike Williams. If we're talking about a ceiling and a floor, agreed. We got another one.
That's my fiance.
Oh, okay. All right. So Mike Williams is a guy that's got a high ceiling and a very low floor. We saw weeks where he scored 27.9, 21 points, 17.2. We've also saw weeks where he scored 2.7, 1.4, and 5.6 along those lines. So talk about a ceiling and a floor sort of guy. Maybe it's a guy, like I said before, if you're chasing a matchup, maybe you're already projected a lot lower than somebody. Maybe he's a guy you can plug into that situation. But yeah, talk about a high ceiling, low floor sort of player. If there's a player stands out in this game for maybe somebody you're speculative of or you're looking forward to, who would that guy be, Steve?
Ooh, here's a tough one. You said high floor, low, or what'd you say?
No. Well, that was just for Williams. If there's a guy in this game that stands out to you as maybe somebody you're avoiding or somebody that you're looking to plug in and play for the Patriots Chargers, who would that player be?
I mean, you like what you've seen from James White lately. He's been more involved and whatnot. He's getting a little more trust. He's their go-to guy. He's been in the offense for years, and he's been getting a lot more work lately. So I don't mind them. I don't mind him against the Chargers. I think you can run against them fairly. I think they're bottom third in the league, maybe right on that threshold. So I like him, and obviously to receive out the backfield. I don't know if I could trust these Patriots wide receivers so much. Jacoby Myers, Damiere Byrd, certainly maybe throw Myers out there, but Casey Hayward is going to be a tough matchup for him if he ends up taking him, which I think he will. And then obviously you trust a guy like Keenan Allen, even in a tough matchup. We'll see what Justin Herbert can do. This isn't an easy matchup. I know in a lot of people's quarterback rankings, he's probably right there at 7 or 6 or so, even against the Patriots. That's just how good he's been this year. But I would temper expectations. I could see him being more of a low-end QB1 with possible chance of being a QB2 just in this matchup. We've seen some woes lately in the last couple weeks, but I think that he should be okay this week, even against that Patriots defense. So we'll see. Overall, the Patriots games usually aren't super exciting when you watch them, so I can kind of see that being the case this week, kind of low scoring.
We got a quick question. Tom Catalano, 815. Opinions on J.K. Dobbins. So Dobbins obviously didn't play against Pittsburgh in their last game. The game before against Tennessee, though, 15 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown, 2 receptions for 15 yards, and 18.5 fantasy points. Do we trust J.K. Dobbins moving forward? The matchup's nice, but how do we feel about playing him? And anybody can chime into this one, guys.
Yeah, I like him. I think it's another one of these where the rookie running back has come into a situation where they've been contested for carries, they've been contested for work, but Mark Ingram now is very much at the end of his career, and I think he'll fade away into the distance. Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, we saw them battle it out against the Steelers to be that guy. And yeah, it was a tough matchup for them last week, and maybe Hill was the one that proved to be a little bit more productive than Edwards, but I think that does leave Dobbins now free to really step up. And this Ravens offense, they've got to start trusting the ground game, just like they did last year. Again, we've seen some terrible play calls there, but last year they got things going. It's just not quite gone the same way. So yeah, let's lean on Dobbins now. Let's see him produce for the rest of the season. Let's give him that backfield, and that will free up Lamar Jackson to hopefully see some of the form that we saw from him last year.
Do we have any disagreements in the room?
No.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a guy you like what you saw last week, but coming off the COVID and whatnot. I kind of want to see it again. Hopefully, you're in the playoffs. If you're in the playoffs, you have J.K. Dobbins. Feel comfortable putting him in or out because you're already in the playoffs. But pay attention for next week. Pay attention to his production this week. Watch the game. Pay attention to his usage so you can feel confident putting him in your lineup next week if he ends up being the guy. So that's all I would say.
Ravens have Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill. They knew what they had, and in the draft in the second round, they went out and got J.K. Dobbins. That tells me all I need to know.
He's clearly the more elusive player. Watch him on the field. He's so much more electric. He does so much more for the football team. I like Gus Edwards. He's actually a pretty young guy, and he's been pretty good for the Ravens, but he doesn't do what J.K. can do. J.K. was electric at Ohio State. He comes here to the Ravens, and he's just like that all-around three-down player. He can catch balls out of the backfield. He's super shifty. He's got explosive ability to be able to break off huge touchdown runs, that kind of thing. He's a rookie right now in a crowded backfield, which is why we haven't seen him go, get a lot of work, kind of like DeAndre Swift. He's had Kerryon Johnson, AP there in Detroit. Once these guys get the reins to their backfield, I think J.K. Dobbins is going to be a very good football player next year and for fantasy. So pay attention to him. Hopefully he can break out here in the playoffs and help you win a championship.
I also think if they see some good signs of him, they're coming off of 2 straight losses, the Ravens, to the Steelers and the Titans. So you might stop having this big rotation of running backs and just go with what's good. So he was good, and they got to start winning games again. So that's interesting there. We have Bob and David left for the Patriots Chargers, I believe, right? We can go with Bob. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on a lot. I do want to talk about this. This question has to do with the last 2 games, and it's something I have to do in 2 separate leagues. I liked Hunter Henry. I went out and got him in a lot of drafts. I like Tanyan. What I saw, I picked him up in almost every league. I own Tanyan too. And my question for this week is, and I'm kind of posing this, I guess, to the group as well as I'm going to talk it through. I had to choose between Tanyan and Hunter Henry. Tanyan is going up against the Eagles, who are 22nd against the tight end, and Hunter Henry is going up against the Patriots, who are top 5. I started Tanyan in both leagues over Hunter Henry. They're 2 really, similar static guys since week 6. Since week 7, they're right next to each other. Tanyan is tight end 6. Hunter Henry is tight end 7. So that's kind of where I wanted to go with this. I really love Tanyan for the Packers against the Eagles. Again, they are 22nd against the tight end. I think Packers are going to score a lot, and why not Tanyan? I think he can find the end zone this week. And Tanyan versus Hunter Henry, that's kind of the choice, and I'm taking Tanyan.
Yeah, their production seems like it's the last
he doesn't want any part of that.
The last few weeks, the last 2 weeks, they've both been in the teens. Tanyan's been better across the last 2 weeks. I guess the difference might be Tanyan finding the end zone versus Hunter Henry having more targets. So I guess if you're looking for maybe a higher ceiling, maybe it's Tanyan.
I went on a rant about Tanyan on my recent YouTube video this week. I love him. I love that, finally Aaron Rodgers has someone that he actually likes, has some chemistry with, and can throw the ball to at the tight end position. Hasn't had that in years. So they have him, and he's been really good. And I think he's a very comparable player to Hunter Henry this year in fantasy football. You mentioned that the Eagles are, mid pack for against tight ends and whatnot. Well, the difference between that and the worst team against tight ends is like 2 points. So any given day, the matchup, I really don't think means too much. It's more about the target share for the team. And I think Tanyan is getting a pretty good, healthy target share to be able to produce in fantasy, similar to Hunter Henry, and actually like Robert Tanyan's chance of getting the end zone a little more than Hunter Henry this week, especially. So I love the guy, Big Bob Tanyan. Like, get him in the lineup.
What do they call him? Baby Kittle, right? Something like that.
I don't know. On the team, I just hear them call him Big Bob Tanyan.
That's calling somebody big something versus baby something is 2 different things. That's good. We'll wrap things up with that Eagles Packers game we were just talking about, Tanyan, and we'll give David a chance to chime in for that on our last game we're talking about. Anything specific for you, David?
Cam Newton is the guy for me. So he has 350 plus yards passing games this year. He has only thrown 4 passing touchdowns. He's not had any multi-passing touchdowns. And obviously, we've got that rushing upside from him there. He's got 9 rushing touchdowns on the ground. So it is a nice matchup for him against the Chargers here. And I expect him to pass the ball. I expect him to get a high passing yardage, not necessarily the touchdowns, but also the rushing upside as well. So I think Cam Newton is going to be a sneaky play. I know this week he has popped up as questionable. He's suffered an abdomen injury, which he's tried to play down, but he is expected to go and to be good today. And in a game where the Chargers just seem to be allergic to winning football games. However hard they try, New England are going to be competitive in this one. And New England is another team. They beat Arizona last week. They are on the peripherals of the playoffs, and it does seem crazy. But obviously this year we've got the additional playoff spots. So these what are they, 4-6? These 4-6 teams are in with a not 4-6. They'll be higher than that, but you know what I mean. They're not. They're that kind of team, and they are within a shout. So it seems crazy, but I think they could do this, and they could really bolster their playoff chances and get within a shout. And for that to happen, we've got to see Super Cam in there. And although we haven't done in a lot of weeks, we have done in some weeks. So yeah, Cam Newton is a sneaky play this week for me.
Last game, so I'll just leave the floor open. Eagles versus Packers. Steve's a fan. I mean, clear as day. I'm not as much, but outside of maybe Devontae Parker being targeted like 19, 20 times, any thoughts on this last game? I'll just leave it up to the floor here, and then we'll wrap things up with a bold take of the week from you guys. So take the floor, guys.
Feed Miles Sanders. That's all I have to say on this one.
That's what I was going to say. Something like that. We need to see it.
Hey, Jordan Howard, though, is back. Is that scary? Or?
No.
Not any more scary than what the Eagles have been doing to Miles Sanders all year long. So I could take it. If that happens, I wouldn't be surprised.
If Miles Sanders doesn't go off against this Green Bay Packers team, he's on your bench. Like, if he doesn't do it this week, he's not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but obviously Carson Wentz, his confidence is absolutely shot at the moment, and this Eagles team is spiraling out of control. So they're going to Lambeau. It's going to be cold. It's going to be perfect running football. So give Carson Wentz a break and put the ball in Miles Sanders' hands against a team that cannot stop the run at all. And we cannot give, sorry, I say we, but the Eagles cannot give the opportunity for Aaron Rodgers to run away with this one, because they can do it on the ground. They can do it through the air. Obviously, they've got so many options. We've just talked about Tonyan there. We've got Adams, we've got Jones, we've got Williams. It's a two-headed backfield there now in Green Bay, and both are startable. So they've got to keep this game under control. And the only way that Philadelphia can do this is to feed Miles Sanders.
I think I could rant on this for a long time. That would make Bootleg Fantasy pretty mad, my co-host on the Climb the Pocket YouTube channel. But I just don't understand what the Eagles are doing with Carson Wentz. It's like, especially in this matchup, I can see it being another game where they're trying to challenge Aaron Rodgers with Carson Wentz and what they want him to be, like what he showed flashes a couple years ago when he was in the MVP race. They want him to be that so bad again that they completely are getting away from their run game to put the ball in the Carson Wentz hand and just let him bring himself back to life. And it's not working. They're falling on their face. And that's why Doug Peterson's on the hot seat, because that decision has completely been blown up in their face. They're not giving the ball to Miles Sanders, who's arguably their best offensive weapon that they are not utilizing. They have no idea. We get a game where he gets 6 carries for 15 yards. People are like, oh, the efficiency is bad. Give the guy an opportunity. Like, this guy has the ability to home run hitter. We saw him against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pretty bad day against them, but was able to break off a 70-yard touchdown run. That's the kind of guy you have. You have to give him the opportunity. And if you don't have the opportunity, 6 carries ain't going to do anything for anyone in any offense. It's just not. So it's super frustrating to watch. If you're an Eagles fan, I feel for you for sure. Miles Sanders owner, feeling a different way, but similar. So it's tough. That's what I'll be watching. I'll also be watching Aaron Jones on the other side. I really want him to get a little more volume than Jamal Williams. It's a 50-50 split right now. That's what's happening. If you have Jamal Williams, feel pretty good about playing him as a flex play, desperation flex. Not desperation, but a guy that you can feel comfortable. He's getting enough work. And in the red zone, they're splitting series. You know, it's Aaron Jones one series. Next series, it's Jamal Williams. It's not an on and off the field thing. When they're on the field, they stay on the field. So feel comfortable with him. I want Aaron Jones to have another huge breakout game like he had earlier in the season. It's just, like I said, he's getting off and on the field a little too much, and he's high up in people's rankings every single week. And I think they're not really adjusting those rankings for the snap percentage. It's pretty much a 50-50. So let's see some more Aaron Jones this week. I like this to be a big ground game, but Aaron Rodgers is playing really, really well. I don't know if it's going to go that way for the Packers.
All right. So to wrap everything up, I'm going to ask everybody bold prediction for the week, and I'm going to put it in my notes, and I'm going to quote it on this live stream here, and then we'll give some props to the person who's maybe the closest if nobody hits on it. But I'll start things off. I wore the jersey. So my bold prediction of the week is James Robinson leads all running backs in rushing yards this week. So that's going to be my bold prediction of the week. and then I'll give you. I'm putting you guys on the spot, so the next person to want to step up, I'm putting it in my notes right now. So whoever's next.
Mitch Trubisky is a top 5 quarterback this week for fantasy.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. All right,
Nice.
Nick
likes that one. He's like, all right, let's go.
I don't know if I'll take it. I guess. All right.
Okay, I'll go. I guess I said I have a couple. I don't know. I like to do this. Darren Waller, 2 touchdowns. I said on the show, Tanyan over Hunter Henry and Pittman over 17 fantasy points.
Oh man.
All right. So all good picks. If I'm putting one of them in my notes that you're rolling with, which one of those 3? Waller. Okay. All right. So I got it. And then we'll finish off with Steve here.
He sniped me on the Pittman thing. I was literally staring at his name. I was going to go Pittman over 100 yards and 6 catches and a touchdown. So big game coming against the Texans. Last week he had a tough matchup. I like him this week as a bounce back. People are going to be afraid because he had a down week last week. I think you feel very comfortable with Pittman in your lineup this week.
All right. So I got them all down. I'll make sure I put that on Twitter, put it into the air. Hopefully all 4 of these hit. So Steve, we'll just wrap things up. Where can we find you again? On Twitter, obviously. Yes. You talked about it to begin with, but we might have some people live right now listening.
Sure, yeah. At Steve_CTP on Twitter. You can find our other Twitter at Climb the Pocket. That's the main page. Go over to our YouTube page, Climb the Pocket. We're going to have a Davante Adams signed jersey giveaway. Super nice white Davante Adams jersey. You just got to go over there, subscribe, pay attention, watch the videos. We'll do the giveaway on there in the next couple weeks. So definitely come on over, check it out. We got you on the starts and sits every week up until the end of the season. So come check it out.
All right. And we'll go to Bob.
I'm at i80sports.com, youtube.com/i80sports, or at i80_sports on Twitter. You can find us every week. We're talking NFL. I'm also on the MLS. We talk about MLS and U.S. men's national team soccer every single week. And we have new teams covering college football and NHL. You don't have to see me on those. We have our own dedicated group for who specialize in just those sports. So you can find us every week, and we're on your favorite podcast app.
All right, and then we'll go to David.
You can find me at Dav_F10Y. So obviously I'm part of the Full 10 Yards family. So you can head over to full10yards.com or at F10Y Fantasy. And we don't just cover the fantasy. We've got the college, we've got the betting, we've got the NFL, like I mentioned before, we've got the retro. And also when we have a season, we have Britball, which is the British League of American Football. So we've not had a season this year due to COVID, but go check that out for sure.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us, guys. Again, Nick from P2W Fantasy talked week 13 with some great guys here. Appreciate you guys coming on.
No, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.